I can feel this one. I can feel it. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Tim Alston, and welcome to the 10 Commandments of Leadership. This is where we do two main objectives. Number one, on these daily, weekday podcasts, we seek to empower, to equip, and to encourage, and to educate our emerging leaders with God thought leadership. And number two, what we also seek to do is to present current events and newsmakers in the light of best practices from the Bible. And today is an exception. The title of this podcast today is From Bitter Lemons to Lemon Meringue Pie: What 13 Firings Taught Me About Ego, Leadership, and God's Purposes. From bitter lemons to lemon meringue pie: what 13 firings taught me about ego, leadership, and God's purpose. When I read Moshe Engelberg's recent Inc. magazine article on how not to add more suffering to the top on top of the hardship in leadership, it screamed to me of egoholism recovering step number 5. And number 5 says, turn your bitter lemons into not only better lemonade, but the best, and that's lemon meringue pie. Once again, turn your bitter lemons into not only better lemonade, but into the best, which is lemon meringue pie. As a recovering egoholic and someone who has been fired 13 times, I've learned the hard way that every pink slip was personal. It was professional, or better said, it was numerical. I came to understand that most corporate layoffs are not about names, but numbers. Cold, nameless, faceless numbers. It reminded me of what your and my parents used to say before giving us a whooping. Remember back in the day we got whoopings? And they all used the same line. They must have gone through the same tutorial, the same training program. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. As a kid, I didn't buy that line, neither did you. But as a business owner who has had to lay off staff, I now get it. It's brutal. And strangely, it's biblical. For me, I call it the splinter principle. The splinter principle. Being fired is like having a wooden splinter under your skin. To remove it, you have to many times make a deeper incision, often more painful at first, but it leads to a greater long healing. Each of my 13 firings became such an incision. Emotional, yes. Ego shattering, absolutely. But ultimately, each cut was surgical, not accidental. They were incisions through which God filtered his higher calling into my life. In fact, in many of those instances of those firings, I was fired shortly after receiving several industry and company awards for my or my team's exceptional performance. What I didn't realize at the time was that God was sending me a loud but loving message. And that was, you've done well here, but this is not where you will stay. I have something greater for you. I was actually being affirmed before being released. The workplace recognized me for a job well done, but God blocked my promotion because he never intended for me to stay at that job and at that location. That's when I stopped running from the deeper calling of what psychologist Dr. Abraham Maslow once called the Jonah complex. The fear of becoming all we were created to be, named after obviously the prophet Jonah in the Bible. And I began yielding to the ministry that awaited me, and that is this egoholism recovering. And then that's where what I call the Joseph wisdom for the pink slipped in. Joseph's words to his brothers in the book of Genesis, chapter 50, and verse 20, ring true for me and for anyone who's ever been blindsided by a layoff. Joseph said, to paraphrase, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. You see what happened in a nutshell? Joseph was fired, sold into slavery, to say it another way. He was demoted, thrown into prison, and misjudged, kept in prison, but positioned ultimately for national influence. Your firing may not feel good, but it can be for your own good. That's what I call lemon meringue pie theology. Lemon meringue pie theology. There's a certain sense of divine irony and recurrence in all of this. Here's another recurring twist that I noticed in my experience. In multiple cases, not in everyone, but in majority of the cases, the person who fired me was ultimately terminated not long afterward. For example, once I was the only Black manager in a multinational company. Seems strange now. And then they brought in another African American, a woman, to be my supervisor. I had a mentor in corporate communications who pulled me aside and said, they brought her in to get rid of you. And once she does that, her purpose will be fulfilled and she will be next. And tragically, he was right. That pattern played out again and again in my career. I'll never forget being laid off from my first job after college in 1978. I was so ashamed, so embarrassed, so empty that I waited 4 to 5 days before telling my parents. When I finally did, my mother responded calmly. I'm sorry to hear that you were laid off, Tim, but now you're going to find out what you're truly made of. And she was right. Firings may feel like failure, but in my life and in the lives of countless colleagues of mine, I've rarely seen a thing that did not lead to a greater elevation professionally. Rarely have I ever seen a person just stagnate or go below. Typically, the firing ultimately led to an elevation. So what should leaders say when they're letting someone go? Now, as someone who has also been the one behind the desk doing the letting go, I know how delicate this is. The Inc. magazine article, for example, said it well. There must be a mindset and a vocabulary shift in these moments. The conversation must move from pity to purpose, for shame to seeding a higher calling. Now, it may feel awkward, even cruel, to speak of silver linings when being handed a pink slip, but with the right words, tone, and divine wisdom, leaders deliver truth and love, even amid transition. Why? Because unless the person being let go falls flat without hope, vision, or plan, their next move will elevate them. With God's help, that bitter lemon becomes better lemonade. Or if we're truly spirit-led, lemon meringue pie that can nourish many other people besides yourself. So what is my final word? If you're reading this and facing a layoff or leading one, know this. There is purpose in your pruning. There is calling in your cutting loose. There is ministry in your misplacement. And if you've been fired like I have 13 times, consider this. You might not be losing a job. You just might be in the process of discovering your life work. I can't make it any more simple than that. I have being laid off or being fired, however you choose to say, whichever makes you feel better. It's not pretty. It's not easy. After a while, you kind of get kind of punch drunk. You kind of feel it and sense it coming. You have been proven to be not necessary in the operation, sometimes politically, um, sometimes otherwise. But I've learned in the process that I've never received a firing that I did not elevate the next time around and elevate elsewhere. Firings are tough. They are emasculating for a man because so much of our being is tied in what we do for a living. But we are more than our jobs. We really have a calling. And so I would suggest to you, pay attention to what I've said. Read these words. Understand them. Listen to it again and again. Share it with someone that you know that may be in the same predicament, either on the verge of losing their job, particularly say if they're working in public service and are facing the cuts from this Trump administration, or if they may be doing the firing themselves. There's divine wisdom out here. Seek it, apply it, because I'm going to tell you, I've been laid off and I've had other people who laid me off me later on let me know they too got laid off. And I began to understand little by little that God said, don't try to understand me, just trust me. I hope that you've learned from these few minutes that we've spent together. I hope they've been enlightening. I hope they've been informational. I hope they've also been inspirational. So join me tomorrow for the 10 Commandments of Leadership. Thanks.